You're listening to the Business Wealth Impact Podcast, your source for empowering information and cutting-edge ideas from the world's top minds. I'm your host, Jeanne Omlor, founder of seven-figure coaching company, Jeanne Omlor International. Join me on a journey to unleash your potential and create your highest success. Welcome to Business Wealth Impact. Another episode of Business Wealth Impact. We have a wonderful guest, Amber Morningstar, today. Amber is the CEO of Dropset Gorgeous LLC, is a dynamic leader that has assisted clients in generating over 50 million in revenue through strategic planning and operational systems. With expertise in hiring, corporate sales, and a BSc in psychology, she's a digital marketing industry leader. Amber helps entrepreneurs scale their businesses by building rockstar teams and developing efficient systems. Welcome, Amber.
Thank you so much for having me on. I'm really excited for the podcast today.
Me too, because I want to dig into all of this systems and team building. But first of all, I'd like to know what got you into entrepreneurship in the first place.
Great question. So originally, my start in the online space was actually doing online fitness coaching. And what I discovered when I was doing that was that I did have a personal passion for fitness, but it didn't really translate into a business passion. However, the actual systems and operations of the business were quite interesting to me. So what I looked at was how can I repackage what I really do find as a passion on the business side and offer that as a service so I can keep fitness for my personal passions. And that led me to creating my operations offer, where I started working with other companies as a fractional COO and helping them to grow their businesses and working on the back end with hiring and systems.
Okay, so you started as a FitPro coach, right?
Yes.
And then you realize you're really good at that operational side and systems.
Correct, yes.
Awesome. Okay, so what were you doing before you were a fitness pro? How did you start out?
So to go even further back, I originally went to school for psychology. So my plan there was to become an experimental psychologist. While working during university, I started to excel in the retail field. So I ended up pursuing that, and I was a store manager at the clothing store Guess. So I worked there for a few years and definitely enjoyed my time there as well. From there, I transitioned into corporate sales. And I just feel that being a manager in retail and having that experience in corporate sales and leading teams in that side as well, too, it definitely gave me a lot of foundational principles to bring into the online world. And one thing that I always talk about with clients that I work with is, structure doesn't have to be suffocating. A lot of times people get into their own online business because they want that freedom. But what they don't realize is that if they have no structure to their business, it's not very freeing to be completely tied to your business and be putting out fires all day. Honestly, at the end of the day, structure really can set you free if it's done correctly. So I think I'm very successfully able to bring in some of those principles I learned in retail and corporate to help business owners online to create foundational structures for scale.
Absolutely. It's great. Okay, now I get it. So you had that background.
Yes.
That you were able to put the radar onto online. And you're so right. Anything too much is not a freedom. Like
Yes.
sometimes too many trackers is not a freedom.
Yes.
And too many apps is not a freedom because you're tied to using 100 apps a day. So yes. Okay. So very, very, very important. Okay. So then you went to FitPro and then you decided that you saw you're really good at this. And how long have you been helping people with the systems?
So I've been helping people with systems since 2018. So it's been quite a while now. And I've worked with a lot of major people in the coaching industry. I think that my team building experience has definitely been a great key with a lot of the larger clients that I've worked with. I feel like entrepreneurs typically are more a visionary personality type. They're used to kind of flying by the seat of their pants. And that doesn't really translate well into working with a team because the team has no clear sense of direction. And there isn't a sense of stability when the entrepreneur is kind of changing their mind every day or giving the impression that they're kind of making things up as they go, even if they're not. And so me coming in and being able to, again, create that structure and that stability for the team members as well as being good at finding good team members, has really helped to build out that system for entrepreneurs so they can step more into that CEO role and stop being a solopreneur in their own business.
That's really important to have somebody helping people get good team members, because I find that is one of the largest struggles of entrepreneurs, whether it's online or offline.
Agreed. Yes. I feel like that is a fundamental issue I've seen across many businesses. They struggle to know who the right person is to hire, and they struggle to admit when they've hired the wrong person. So having that clarity and knowing, not only where to find great people, but once you hire someone who's not the right person, knowing when it's time to part ways with that person and move on, not only for the growth of the business, but also for their own individual growth as well, too.
Very important. Actually, I found that with myself, that I am much quicker to ascertain if it's not going to work out, and make it a win for everybody.
Yes. I think that's
In
important.
fact, I hired somebody 2 days ago, and I could see that it was not a fit. And she was gone today because it just wasn't a fit, for even like her equipment wasn't compatible with ours.
Right.
And I said, isn't it better that, you have one day? And she goes, thank you very much. She was very grateful, because we both knew it just, there was too much incompatibility with her systems and ours. So it's very important. And I find that there's a lot of guilt with entrepreneurs. Have you found that when things don't work out the first time? Can you speak on that a bit?
I think especially if an entrepreneur hires somebody that's in their friend circle or someone that's maybe been with them since the beginning of their business, there definitely is a lot of guilt and almost a certain feeling of reciprocity that's required because that person has quote unquote been there since the beginning. And what I try to tell clients is the team that got you here won't be the team that gets you there. And there has to be transitions through the process of growing your business because not everyone who's on your team when you start your business is going to be able to help you get to those next levels that you want to reach. And to your point, when you let go of that team member, she was relieved because she knew that it wasn't working out. Oftentimes, what entrepreneurs need to realize is when they're holding on to the wrong team member, they're also preventing that person from going on to do better things within their career as well too, that are better suited to their skill sets and that would be more fulfilling for them as well. And so I think just that mindset shift and stopping to feel guilty about letting them go and realizing that what's best for the business is often best for the team member, and
Hmm.
letting them go is actually the better move for both parties.
Right, because it doesn't mean that they're a bad worker. It just means there's not a fit with what you're doing, or even the culture, because there is a culture. And people say, "Well, I have no work culture." I'm like, "Yeah, you do. If there's three people working together, that's a work culture." Would you agree with that?
I agree with that 100%. And I feel like any team dynamic is very similar to like a family dynamic and or a relationship dynamic.
Mm,
I very often compare working with a specific team member to having a relationship. And I often joke, I'm sure you've had relationships in the past where it's not working, but you just keep trying to see if just
mm-hmm,
maybe it'll work out.
mm,
And, who has really stayed in those relationships? Not many. There are
hmm.
certain problems that you can work through, don't get me wrong, but just like relationships, if it's not working, it's better to,
Cut the
cut that
cord.
cord and move forward than to continue. And those people that you're no longer with, no longer dating, have likely gone on to marry someone who was a great fit for them. And had you guys stayed together being the wrong fit for one another, again, it would just be preventing the two of you from going on to finding who is compatible for you to be with. So,
Hmm.
again, I feel like making those analogies helps entrepreneurs to put the pieces together and understand, again, what's best for the team is best for the team member.
I use a lot of dating analogies as well. Actually, you reminded me, with before I was an online coach, I was a business strategist for all sorts of offline businesses, and I'd go in, team. I was an executive leadership coach, and the main problem, and it still is because I still have some very high end clients. Problem that I've found is they cannot let go of employees. They cannot do it. There's like father problems. There's this problems. There's, oh, I've known them for 20 years. And each one's almost in tears when I say, we have to evaluate whether that person should actually still work there. Like, but Jeanne. And then they go, you're right. We're losing money because of that. One bad employee loses millions of dollars, right?
Yes.
But it's the emotion. We want people to be compassionate. However, a business isn't about just a friendship. It is about bringing in cash flow. So that's really interesting. So Tell me some things that happened in your business that you've learned from. I'm sure you've had some disasters, and it's all nice to tell people, oh, we'll go do this. But I think it's really important also to share the ugly side of things with people, the stuff that went wrong. So what are some things that happened with you that helped you to learn how to help other people with all this?
I've done my fair share of hiring. I've probably hired well over 400 people for different companies at this point, and that's being conservative. Has every single person worked out? Absolutely not. I think a lot of times people are very quick to hire and slow to fire, and it really should be the opposite.
Mm.
I've developed a hiring process that is quite lengthy that we use with clients now that involves several application phases, skills assessments, and several interview phases before making a hiring decision. And in the past, I, fell victim to the same thing. I was very quick to hire because I waited until it was too late, until I
Mm-hmm.
was overwhelmed and needed the support. And now you're hiring out of a place of lack,
Desperation.
right? Of desperation,
Yeah.
exactly. And so you're not making the best decision for yourself or your business when you're hiring from that place. And so I've hired team members like yourself where I've had to fire them 2 days later because they were just not a fit.
Mm-hmm.
And so that can be avoided if you start implementing a hire, slow, fire, fast mentality.
Mm-hmm.
And that is kind of from having some of those bad hires, we've been able to develop a system that allows us to make more educated decisions when bringing on team members. And clients always say, what do you mean it's going to take 4 weeks to bring on a new team member? But
Mm-hmm.
ultimately, that's doing it the correct way. You should be hiring well before you need somebody so that by the time you're bringing them on, again, you're not hiring from that place of desperation and you really truly can make the best decision out of the available candidates.
100%. The thing is, though, people don't do that. We get to a
Yeah.
point where it's like, oh wow, I really need somebody right now, right?
Yeah.
And then you have to slow yourself down and say, okay, take a deep breath. Remember the last time you hired somebody right now and how bad it was? Although I must say, some of my quick hires have been the best hires. Sometimes
Right.
you're just lucky, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
However, it's better to use a scientific method that a process, obviously, because in the end, all the bad hires do take time, energy, and waste your time and money,
Yes,
right?
exactly. That's the other thing I
Right.
was going to add is people don't realize how expensive it is to hire the wrong person because they think that, hey, if I could just get somebody in and get them to start helping, that's
Mm-hmm.
great. That helps me focus on higher revenue producing activities.
Mm-hmm.
But what they don't realize is that you're now putting double the time into training. You're now
Yes.
paying a salary out to this person who's not going to stay on the team.
Mm-hmm.
You then have to pay whoever is doing the recruiting or take your time to go and do that recruiting all over again.
Mm-hmm.
So it does become a very expensive mistake if you rush out to hire and end up being wrong with who you bring onto the team.
Right. So I have an interesting question for you. Do you know this person called Sean Accor? He's a happiness expert.
That name sounds familiar, but I don't know
Yeah.
him personally.
Very interesting. He was saying that they've realized that one of the main things you should be hiring for is whether that person is a happy person. Because they
Interesting.
did studies that you're better off hiring a happy person, even if they're not like great salespeople, because the happy person in the end will learn it and be a better salesperson because they're happy and people feel that.
Right.
So
That makes
interesting.
sense.
Does
Yeah,
that
that
come
is
into
very
your,
interesting.
when you're helping people hire, does the personality thing come into it a lot, like grit, determination,
It
attitude?
definitely does. Yeah. And to your point, whether you're a team of 3 or a team of 30, there is a team culture in place. And
Mm-hmm.
the first thing I screen for is culture. Are you a culture fit for the company that we're recruiting for? I try my best to understand, who are the existing team members on the team and how do they interact with one another? And what are the values and what is the mission for the CEO? How do they
Mm-hmm.
interact with their team members? What is their vision for their company? And I try to find people who I feel will align with that vision and fit into that culture. So we do a lot of personality assessments. We've used the DISC in the past, the Myers-Briggs.
Mm-hmm.
And I know for a while in my company personally, we were also using the Harry Potter sorting hat quiz. That was more of just a lighthearted addition
Mm-hmm.
to our hiring process because I am a diehard Harry Potter
Mm.
fan. But we did actually find statistically over time that we had certain people from certain houses that were just more compatible on our team than others. So although it started as sort of like a fun kind of just thing at the end of our hiring process, it actually ended up being very helpful for us in the long term.
Wow. So do you actually, one of your services is you actually hire people for companies, or you show them how to do it?
So we have higher end clients where we do full service operations. And
Mm.
with those clients, we do handle all of the hiring and team management. We
Mm-hmm.
used to do both onshore and offshore hiring. So hiring within the US and
Mm.
hiring internationally.
Mm-hmm.
We have transitioned to solely doing international hiring, but we
Mm.
do have a VA staffing service. And that would be the main front end offer that we, work with clients through.
Oh, okay. So you're fulfilling, but you're also coaching people.
I honestly don't really do much coaching unless it's
Oh.
like one-on-one consulting. We
Mm-hmm.
really just do the VA staffing at this point, and I have a few
Mm.
partnership clients that we do full service operations for.
Okay. Wow. Okay. So what's something that you can share with people if they're not ready to hire somebody, to hire people for their company or manage them? What's something like the one thing that people could shift that you could just teach them right now before while they're getting ready to hire somebody like you? What can they do on their own?
So what I would say, and I actually learned this from a client of mine, Brandon Carter, and it stuck with me ever since he taught me about this. But he said, figure out how much your time is worth. So what is your dollar per hour?
Mm.
Let's say, I've defined my dollar per hour as $100 an hour. So for every
Mm-hmm.
hour I'm working in my business, I can generate $100.
Mm-hmm.
Then he said, any task that you could pay someone less than $100 to do for you,
Mm-hmm.
you're making money by delegating that task
Mm-hmm.
off. And that was a really big mindset shift for me when I was starting out, because I was like, this makes sense. It's very easy for people to kind of see what are the types of things that I should be getting off of my plate. Because I feel like when you're a beginner entrepreneur, you struggle to understand what the role of a CEO really is because you're so used to wearing all the hats. It
Mm-hmm.
becomes very difficult to understand what you should be delegating off. When we work
Mm-hmm.
with clients, one of the number one questions I get when we're their first time hire is what should I give you to do?
Mm.
Right? I know I need help. I just don't know what I should have you guys working on. And so I always have them go through that activity, figure out what your dollar per hour is and what we can delegate off that actually works out to make
Mm-hmm.
you money.
Mm-hmm.
And then also do an activity inventory. So write down everything you're doing in your business right now, and then highlight all the things that you don't like to do, group together like activities or like tasks, and that'll give you a really clear picture of the type of person you're looking to hire as well. Because we'll hire assistants for anything, for accounting, for client retention, for graphic design, for
Mm-hmm.
lead generation. And so by having them do that activity inventory and then highlighting those like tasks, it really helps to make them aware of what type of person they're looking for, what type of admin they're looking to fill
Mm.
that role for.
Mm.
So I feel like those two activities coupled together are exceptionally helpful for entrepreneurs making their first hire who are just unsure of what to do and what to delegate.
Absolutely. I did that years ago. And it blew my mind that, when I first started coaching, I was making $80 an hour with the coaching. But then my time was not worth $80 an hour because I had to do all this stuff. But I worked out, I think that my time was worth about $50 an hour. Okay.
Right.
And it blew my mind because I thought, well, why wouldn't I hire a cleaning lady?
Mm-hmm.
Instead of me spending 2 hours, that's $100. So that is a really good exercise on any level because there
Yep.
is a dollar amount on your time and what you can generate. It blew my mind when I realized that. Thought that yes, delegate. I think it's a really good um, first thing to do, and also the thing of what you don't like. People don't like doing or do like. They just do it, and it's this big mishmash of just getting through the day. But I think if we start tracking, like you said, the what you're doing, you like it, okay, and then what you don't like, and then there's usually like a neutral thing. It's okay, you know. I think
Yep.
that you like in the okay, you can get away with that, but stuff that you really do not like doing, it ruins your life to do stuff that you hate doing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Agreed.
yeah,
And if someone else enjoys doing it, why not hire someone who's going to be fulfilled by doing those types of administrative tasks or doing lead gen or doing sales even?
hmm
And if they are passionate about that task, they're likely going to eventually do it better than you. At which
hmm
point you're actually getting more proficiency out of them and you're making money on that as well too, because of like we talked about the dollar per hour comparison.
You know what? I realized that when one of my assistants, when she said, "I love doing this," something that I hated, I thought, "You're the right person." I said, "Wait, you love this?" "Oh, I
Exactly.
love doing this tracking." And I said, "Okay." I said, "You are the right person." She goes, "Oh, I love all this stuff." When somebody says that on your team, it's like, yes, because she goes, "Oh, I thrive on this." I said, "That's great. You're a perfect person for this. It's awesome." No, it
Exactly.
is that what we don't like, somebody else loves. They say one person's treasure is another person's junk, or one person's junk
Yes.
is another person's treasure. It's kind of the same thing with what we're doing in life. It's so important to try and get our day to a point where not everything we're doing is something we don't like. And I think that, as I said, people just put up with stuff and put up with it. And then they get to a point where they hate working because it's like, well, it's such a drudgery. So this has been amazing. So what's something that you want to share with people as a last parting thought?
I'll quote Alex Hormozy on this one, and I'll say simple scales, complex fails. And so when building a team or building any system in your business, one thing I've learned over time is you may think you're making something more efficient, but if it has all these bells and whistles and it's super complex, it's likely not going to sustain at scale. You really want to look for the simplest solution that does automate things and get things off your plate, but don't get too wrapped up in making things exceptionally complex, because you're going to be tweaking and changing them all the way through the growth of your business. So just focus on what is the simplest path to success and execute on that.
Amen to that. Well, that's a mic drop. Amber, this has been fantastic. How can people reach you?
If people want to reach me, they are more than welcome to check me out on Instagram. My Instagram is dropset.gorgeous, and they're happy to send me a DM if they have any questions about hiring or team building. I'm always happy to help.
Absolutely. Okay, we'll also have all your notes in the show notes. So thank you so much for turning up. I hope you enjoyed this wonderful episode on team building and hiring with Amber, and we'll see you on the next one. You're listening to the Business Wealth Impact Podcast, your source for empowering information and cutting-edge ideas from the world's top minds. I'm your host, Jeanne Omlor, founder of seven-figure coaching company, Jeanne Omlor International. Join me on a journey to unleash your potential and create your highest success. Welcome to Business Wealth Impact.